Okay, let's begin, I guess. Okay, so we are talking today about pesticides. Oh, sure. And how they go through an ecosystem. Is it through there? And you will need clickers. So come and get. Oh, they're there, over there. Come and get clickers. So as I said, we're going to look at pesticides today and how they move through the system. So I'm reading from the textbook thing here. Pesticides. There's no better way to understand the flow of matter through an ecosystem than to study food webs. This is true of both natural organic matter and toxins introduced by animals. In this case study, you will investigate the impact of pesticides on living things in ecosystems. And I have to stop because I know that the next question is, what is a pesticide? And let me just check the answer because I have a funny feeling we had it wrong last time.
No.
Okay, I fixed it. Okay. So, what is a pesticide? I stopped right at the right spot there, so you should easily be able to find it. Is it a naturally occurring toxic chemical? Is it a toxic chemical designed to kill weeds? Is it a toxic chemical designed to kill annoying animals? Or is it a toxic chemical designed to kill annoying plants and animals? Got everyone there? Hopefully you all got it right. How come I get 8 out of 9?
It's A.
Brandon. It's A? No, it's
G.
It is a toxic chemical designed to kill annoying animals and plants. If it's to kill insects, they call it an insecticide. If it's to kill plants, they call it a, anybody know? I think so, that's close. Herbicide. Also used to kill people named Herb. My apologies to anyone who has a family member named Herb. Alright. So it says, why use pesticides? One estimate suggests that as much as 30%, or actually, yeah, I should go back, right? Pesticides, I can go back to the first part there, right? Pesticides are chemicals designed to kill pests. A pest is an organism that people consider harmful or inconvenient, such as weeds, insects, fungi, and rodents. In many situations, pesticides are used to protect species that are beneficial to humans from a competitor or predator that is less useful. So in other words, we try to get rid of things we don't want, right? In this picture here, what would happen if grasshoppers are declared to be pests and wiped out? And I know I did this the other day with you guys. So if we got rid of the grasshopper, what would happen? Well, that would be one less food source for the squirrels. Where's spiders? Yeah. No more food for the spiders. One less food source for the grouse. One less food source for the hawk, right? Any others? Oh yeah, field mouse. Any others there? There's no direct link there, right? But now, good point here. The second generation here, if the spiders are only eating grasshoppers and there's no grasshoppers, what happens to the spider? Spider dies, which means one less food source for the field mice, one less food source for the squirrel, one less food source for the shrew. And now suddenly the shrew only has one thing to eat, berries from shrubs.
And that doesn't really sustain someone for a while.
Especially in the wintertime, right?
So he's going to die.
Or what if there's like a drought and the berries don't come to fruition, right?
So a shrew is going to die.
Shrews run out.
And the shrew dies.
No cougars. Well, one less food source. One less food source there, right? Anything else? You notice that the field mouse now only has 2 out of 4, so the field mouse is probably going to be smaller, right? Which means there might be less for the cougar there. And the squirrel, he's only got a couple. He might get smaller, right? So just getting rid of grasshoppers sort of has that ripple effect everywhere, right? Can cause problems. Why do farmers not like grasshoppers?
Because they destroy crops.
Exactly.
And,
Yep. But it does eliminate that food source. Now, here's another point we didn't talk about. If the grasshopper is eliminated, what is the food source for the grasshopper? Dandelions and thistles. So now, if there's no, and in fact, according to this, grasshoppers are the half the dandelions go to grasshoppers. So what's going to happen to the amount of dandelions? They're going to expand, increase. Nobody likes dandelions,
no.
right? Grasses and thistles might expand too, right? So it puts a real sort of stress on the ecosystem.
Would that allow deer to have a higher population?
That's true. The deer population would go up. Yeah. True. Okay, so why do farmers want to get rid of pests? They smell bad? They ruin their crops so they lose money? They are hard to work with. Pretty straightforward, pretty easy. Why do farmers want to get rid of pests? Yay! They ruin crops so they lose money. Exactly. And farmers are working hard to try to feed us. Pesticides can also control insects that do what? Spread disease and can kill people. For example, mosquitoes can spread disease, right? We often spray for mosquitoes. So that's a pesticide, right? The problem with getting rid of mosquitoes, it's a food source for grasshoppers, fish, bats. Is that right? Butterflies? Do butterflies eat mosquitoes?
Yeah.
Oh, dragonflies. Yeah.
Butterflies.
Dragonflies are cool. Yeah.
First time.
Yeah. One estimate suggests, I'm reading here where it says why use pesticides. One estimate suggests that as much as 30% of the annual crop in Canada is lost to pests such as weeds, rust, and mold, both forms of fungi, insects, birds, and small mammals. The cost to consumers can be staggering. For example, in 1954, 3 million tons of wheat in the prairies was destroyed by stem rust, a fungus that grows inside the leaves and stems of the wheat plant, feeding on the plant stores of food. The Anopheles mosquito found in tropical areas often carries a microbe that enters the circulatory system while the mosquito is sucking the victim's blood. The microbe produces malaria. Malaria causes fever and can lead to death. As late as 1955, malaria affected more than 200 million people. Today, because of pest control measures, the incidence of malaria has been drastically reduced, although it is still a major killer in some countries. And you should get a malaria shot if you go to some countries.
Mr. Bennett?
Yeah.
Is that also, I'm probably wrong, but is that also called yellow jack, or is that,
I haven't heard that.
or yellow fever, whatever?
Maybe yellow fever. That might be different. I remember when Mr. Fisher, my friend, went to Brazil, he had to get a shot for
It's either, I don't know if it's
dengue.
yellow jack or something like that.
Malaria.
I don't think so, I'm probably wrong.
Mosquito-borne infectious disease, blah, blah, blah. In severe cases, it can cause yellow skin.
It could possibly call yellow fever if it drinks your skin.
Yeah.
Or yellow jack.
Malaria, yellow fever. Difference between malaria and yellow fever. Slight difference, I guess. Both diseases carried by mosquitoes move from one victim to the next. Neither malaria nor yellow fever can be transmitted between human beings. So there you go. Okay, so what about these first generation pesticides? Why are the first generation pesticides not very good? You should read
We already have this one too.
page 53. We got this part. Oh, I forgot about that part. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
we did.
Okay, well, so those people that weren't here need to figure out why were the first generation pesticides not very good? Was it because, oh, and I need to do this, don't I? Was it because they did not work very well? They also acted as fertilizer and caused plants to go out of control. They were also harmful to humans and they smell bad. First generation of pesticides. The answer is yes, C. They were harmful to humans. What were some first generation pesticides? Our attempts to control pests extend back to about 500 BC when sulfur was first used to repel insects. During the 15th century, arsenic, lead, and mercury were applied to crops as insecticide. That's a bad idea. As many farmers eventually discovered, these substances were not only deadly for insects, but also highly poisonous for people. By the 1920s, farmers had become fully aware of the hazardous effects and the practice was abandoned. Unfortunately, these dangerous substances still show up in some vegetables if they are grown in soils that were treated with the metals for a great number of years. So if you grow certain vegetables in certain areas, maybe in Greece or in Italy, sort of ancient old civilizations, they may have contained mercury and arsenic and those kind of things. In 1763, French gardeners began using nicotine sulfate, a chemical extracted from the tobacco plant, to kill aphids. By the mid-1800s, 2 more plant extracts have been developed in the battle against insects, one from the head of the chrysanthemum and the other from the roots of tropical legumes. Legumes are plants that bear the seeds in pods like peas, beans, locust trees, peanuts as a legume. Many plants have developed chemical defenses against animals, insects, other animals that try to eat the leaves or seeds of the plants die or become very ill. They learn to avoid the plant in the future. Borrowing those chemicals from plants seems to make sense. Okay, so I would like you to make a note here that the residue of those first generation pesticides can still be found in the soil that they were applied to. So they're still lingering there. Okay, what causes a pesticide to be labeled as a second generation pesticide? What makes it second generation? Is it that they're naturally occurring and not harmful to humans, made in the laboratory, or it's a pesticide made from combining first generation pesticides? That's a good question. What makes a second generation pesticide a second generation? And I need to hit start, don't I? The answer is C, made in the lab. First sentence, second generation pesticides are chemicals made in a laboratory. In 1939, Paul Mueller found that, and I'm going to try to say it, can you see the word there? Are you following along?
Oh my gosh.
Do you want to try there, Chloe?
Phenyl trichloroethane.
Pretty close. Dichloro-diphenyl trichloroethane.
Oh. I was like one off.
Say that 10 times fast.
Dichloro-diphenyl trichloroethane. That.
Funny.
Yeah, funny guy. Dichloro-diphenyl trichloroethane is also commonly known as DDT. You can now refer to it as DDT. It is a chemical known since 1874 was a potent insecticide. This discovery forever changed the practice of chemical control. It sent researchers looking for much more such chemicals which should develop to protect troops fighting in the tropical jungles of Asia and the Pacific during the Second World War. Thousands of pesticides have since been developed. More than 500 chemical pesticides are registered for use in Canada alone. Worldwide, approximately 2.3 million tons of pesticides are used yearly, or about 0.4 kilograms for every person on Earth. About 75% of these chemicals are used in developed countries, and they are not used only in agriculture. Pesticides are added to shampoos, carpets, mattresses, paints, even the wax on produce. More than 25% of pesticides are used to get rid of pests in homes, gardens, and parks. Now, pesticides can be grouped into 4 different categories. As you can see, some pesticides decompose fairly rapidly, but others stay in the ecosystem for many years. What does that mean by decay or decompose? Breaking down, become unusable, exactly. Okay, so classification of pesticides there. An insecticide is used against insects. Examples are DDT and malathion. Malathion is what they use. They spray it in Winnipeg for mosquitoes. They spray it up at Country Fest for mosquitoes. I don't believe they spray in Dauphin anymore for mosquitoes, but they do use malathion. Herbicide targets weeds, things like 2,4-D, Silvex, Roundup that a lot of people have in their garages, right? Fungicide can kill mold and fungi, and bactericides kill bacteria like penicillin. So those are second generation pesticides. Okay, here's the one thing that I really want you to learn from this lesson. The process where toxins are passed on to higher trophic levels and then are increased is called biomultiplication, bioamplification, biotoxicity, toxification. A cool word. No, it's toxinification. What is the process where toxins, poisons, are passed on to higher trophic levels and then are increased? You just guessing? Oh. The answer is B, bioamplification. It's on the top of the next page. Bioamplification. This is the one, this is sort of the main idea. It's also known as, if you Google it up, it's also known as, it's also known as, oh my gosh. What is it now? I gotta remember, what is it called? Bioaccumulation. That's the other word for it. There's another one too, but I can't remember what it is. Bioaccumulation. Okay? I'm going to read here and I'm going to show you a video about it. And then we're going to do some things to make sure you understand. So pesticides that contain chlorine, such as DDT and dieldrin, are soluble in fat but not in water. Can you just highlight that in that sentence there? Soluble in fat but not in water. So let's talk about that for a second. What does that mean? Soluble in fat. If something is soluble, like you put sugar in water, it dissolves, right, Ruben? So that means that sugar is soluble in water, it will dissolve. Salt is soluble in water. A lot of things are. Okay? So the chlorine is soluble in fat. In other words, if it gets in fat, it will be absorbed by the fat and stay there. But it's not soluble in water. So what does that mean for animals? Well, what it means is they end up being stored in the body. How do you get rid of things out of your body? There's really only a couple ways.
Sweating or...
Yeah, sweating, go to the bathroom, number one, number two.
And vomiting.
Vomiting, I suppose, right? But a lot of them involve liquid, right? So if the toxin is not soluble in water, guess where it doesn't go? Out. It doesn't go out. It stays in the body because it's soluble in fat. So it gets stored in the animal's fat. Okay? So that's what it says there. As a result, these toxins cannot be released in urine or sweat, so they accumulate. Bioaccumulation. They accumulate in the fatty tissues of animals. When there is a small amount of pesticides in the environment, it will enter the bodies of animals that are low in the food chain. That's where the problem begins. But it gets much worse as the toxin moves up the food chain into higher trophic levels. Even though there is only a small amount of toxin in each of the prey animals that a secondary consumer eats, the amount of toxin in its body will be larger because each predator eats many prey. Okay, so for example here, what's the lowest trophic level in this food chain over on the right? Who's at the bottom? See it, Tiffany? Who's at the bottom of the food chain? Grasshoppers. And they eat the poisons. And you can see them, they're labeled with a P. Okay? But what's the next level up? The shrews. Every one of those shrews, maybe say in a month or in a week, is going to eat 4 grasshoppers. Will they get how many P's? How many poisons? 4. And each one of those shrews is eaten by a owl. And now the owl has picked up 12. Is the animal getting bigger? Yes. It's a larger, like an owl is bigger than a grasshopper, right? But the increase in toxins goes up as well. Okay? So it says, When the secondary consumers eat, the higher level predator gets all the toxins, plus those of all the other predators. At each stage of the food chain, the concentration becomes greater. Can you guys find that sentence and highlight that? At each stage, it's just to the right of the hole punch. Just to the right of the middle hole punch. At each stage of the food chain, the concentration becomes greater. Find it?
No.
It's just to the right of the hole. At each stage of the food chain, the concentration becomes greater. The higher the trophic level, the greater the concentration of toxins. This process is referred to as bioaccumulation. Make it scary sound. Shall we watch a YouTube video on it?
Of course. There's no other way. Where do we get liposuction with animals?
I suppose, yeah, that might work, I guess. DDT can accumulate in humans. Should I read the sentence, read the paragraph?
No, we can figure it out.
Okay. You know it's there at that bottom of that page. DDT can accumulate in humans. I will start the question. The irony of the insecticide is that although the insecticides were developed to rid the world of harmful insects, they have had a much greater effect on humans. Like other top predators, humans are subject to bioapplication. Evidence that DDT was beginning to accumulate in humans was collected in the 50s and the 60s. DDT levels became especially high in humans who lived where DDT was sprayed on crops. However, anyone who ate crops in these areas or ate animals that fed on the crops was also exposed to DDT. Concern about this growing threat was so great that the use of DDT was banned in Canada in 1971 and in the United States in 1972. The ban hasn't totally eliminated the problem. Migratory birds like the mallard duck, Canada goose, and the peregrine falcon winter in Central America and Mexico where DDT is still used. Fish that mean the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans also migrate up and down the coast. So DDT is still banned in Canada. Let's just see here. DDT. I wonder where else it's banned. DDT ban. The DDT story. Can we trust Wikipedia on this, do you think?
Yes.
Yeah, of course. We're
You can always
gonna
just
never
repeat
lie.
that.
Always?
Yep, always.
Well, you can trust
And you
Wikipedia as much as you can trust Urban Dictionary.
California.
There was like this, thing that I read, and it's like,
Yeah?
this teacher who,
You do have to be careful with Wikipedia because of that. How can you sort of check to see what...
Scroll to the bottom.
Yeah, you can scroll to the bottom to actually click the link that it's referring to. You can also view history and find out who's changing it. Right? So right here, someone made a change. Right? You can actually have a look and see, like, are they just randomly changing things? You can check out the people that are actually doing the changes too. Anyways, so DDT is a colorless oil, so I want to find out the ban here. United States ban, restriction on usage. DDT continued to be produced in the United States for foreign markets until 1985 when over 300 tons were exported. Agricultural use was banned in most developed countries, beginning with Hungary, Norway, Sweden, West Germany, and the U.S., not in the United Kingdom until 1984. Despite the worldwide ban, agricultural use continued in India, North Korea, and possibly elsewhere as of 2008. So there is still DDT being used in certain areas. Okay. Now banned in Canada and the U.S., still used in Mexico. Why is this a problem? Who can tell me?
because the animals that migrate to Mexico, so
Yep.
accumulate that, and then it migrates back here.
Yep. And then they're eating here, right? Especially if you're eating goose. I'm going to type it. Does that make sense? Birds that migrate back and forth can bring the toxin to Canada?
So we need to stop all birds that come across the border.
Build a bird wall.
Yep. A giant pane of glass.
That would do the trick.
I just can't allow
They say wouldn't get across the border. Wait, aren't they technically terrorists? By harming-
Birds?
Yes, harming the population. We,
I guess. Okay, so what about some newer pesticides? Newer pesticides are soluble in fat, soluble in water, not as strong, have longer names. B is the correct answer.
oh, that really sucks.
They are soluble in water. On the top of page 55, modern chemical pesticides. Unlike DDT and other chlorine-based insecticides, the newer chemicals are not stored in fat tissue, they're soluble in water. Animals can remove them from their bodies by breaking them down in their livers and excreting them. They can also be broken down within the soil. These new compounds operate like nerve gases, which act by preventing electrical messages from traveling from the brain to the muscles, from the brain to the muscles to control breathing or the limbs. This either kills the animal directly or makes it vulnerable to predators. Although somewhat safer than the older chemicals, the newer insecticides are not without their problems. First, they break down quickly in the soil, so they must be applied to crops more often. Second, these new chemicals are not selective. Because the nerve action of most larger animals is very similar, these insecticides are capable of killing mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, and fish. Unintended changes to the food web are difficult to predict. Third, animals that have died or become weakened by the toxin put other animals at risk through bioapplication. Large doses of the toxin can still cause death. So there still is a problem. But what does it mean if they're soluble in water? It means what? Can be? That's what it means. Can be removed by sweat or urine. You guys have more there, don't you?
no.
Yes.
I don't. There. Okay. So newer pesticides. Oh, we did this already, right? Yeah. Kind of a double up there. Okay. So what is one of the problems? Oh, do I have to go back and do question number one? No, single question. One of the problems with the new pesticides is what? They cost a lot of money, they break down fast, have to be reapplied more often, they're hard to spray and use, they smell bad. There's a lot of smelling bad. I was having a hard time coming up with answers that weren't right. That's a little tip.
Jimmy salt.
They smell bad. Logan sucks.
They smell worse.
Oh. What is the problem with the newer pesticides? The answer is, yeah, B. They break down fast, and they have to be reapplied more often. They're not quite as strong. But they're better for the environment. What are some other problems? They're not selective. They kind of tend to kill everything. They can still lead to bioamplification in some cases. Not near as bad. They are certainly better. Good? Couple more questions. Another issue with pesticides is they cost more than they worth. They can create superpower mutant insects. Insect can become resistant to them, and then they no longer work. And again,
Oh my, come on,
Thank you.
we put Logan socks.
yes, that's a correct answer. D. Logan socks.
Yes.
It is,
Oh, I'm sorry.
but I'm going to be good. It's the names.
Oh.
I wonder what it is.
Well, we've seen superpower mutant insects before. Does whatever a spider can.
I forget the rest of the song.
No, don't get sensitive.
Here comes the Spider-Man.
No.
Come on, Alyssa. We all know the answer's D.
Pick D. Whoever picked.
Oh, super D.
I'm proud of whoever picked D.
No.
I'm proud of.
Yes. Let me read about this here, and then we'll stop. The pests fight back. See there? Where it says the pests fight back? It seems that chemical pesticides have a natural shelf life because the pests they're supposed to kill gradually become resistant. This is particularly true of bactericides and insecticides because pests' high rate of reproduction. If the first application of a chemical kills 90% of the insects, that still leaves 10% that survive. Some of those insects have genes that help them survive application of the pesticide. With every generation of insects, the pesticide removes those that are not susceptible and leaves those that are not. In addition, because the pesticide removes so many of the insects, the survivors have the benefit of less competition for food. After several generations of the selection process, most of the insects carry genes that will help them survive an application of the pesticide. Eventually, the pesticide becomes useless, and pesticide chemists must search for a new poison. So this is really an example of what? Starts with an E. AJ?
Evolution.
Insects have genes, really?
Yeah.
Evolution.
Evolution, Logan, exactly. Okay? Evolution is causing the insects to become resistant. Okay? Now, it doesn't look like I do a very good job explaining that there. But you can see the picture here on your page. So you can see there, on the very top left-hand corner, see that with me? Top left-hand corner right there? Okay. How many of the circles are like dark? There's 2. Okay, so those 2 are genetically resistant insects. So they put in an insecticide, and you'll see that they kill off a bunch of insects. How many are left now in the second batch? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but of those 6, 2 are dark colored. They have the genes that will be resistant. And so in the next generation, when those guys reproduce, how many now are dark circles? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now you got more that are resistant. And then so then you see the survivors, and then in the next generation, how many are dark? Even more. And eventually, all of the insects are going to be resistant, and they have to come up with a new one. That's the same problem they have with antibiotics, when they just give antibiotics out at the clinic too often, right? The viruses become resistant. Okay, so this is fairly recent, last couple of years. Manitoba has banned pesticide use on lawns to kill our favorite dandelions.
The pesky dandelion, some love it, but for those who hate it, you may have to change the way you kill it come 2015. Today, the province announced changes to the way you can treat those weeds.
Replacing the sale and use of synthetic chemical lawn pesticides with effective low-risk biopesticides.
Good news for these kids who played soccer after the announcement.
Chemicals are bad.
Canada's law Adrian Percy says kids should be able to play without fear of being exposed to chemicals.
It's still the soccer fields, at the public parks where they play, so this is a really important step.
A number of doctors on hand today say it's kids like Hannah that need to be protected.
Well, pesticides are a huge threat to children's health in particular. The science shows that kids who are exposed to these are much more likely to have things like cancer.
Why does it affect kids more?
Because kids are what's resistant.
Why?
Kids are more susceptible to diseases and sickness.
Immune systems aren't complete, that's a good one. There's other reasons, that's a good one. What do kids do?
Very
They play outside, on the grass, they roll around, they put things in their mouth.
No, eating dirt would actually make you more,
Dirty?
no, actually give you a better immune.
Oh, maybe, yeah. Yeah. Kids play outside, they ingest things, they're smaller, right? So not a lesser amount can affect them more because, right, their immune system's not as developed. Just go back to some here.
So kids who are exposed to these are much more likely to have things like cancer and neurological problems like Parkinson's disease.
The ban does extend beyond your lawn, school grounds, playgrounds, health centers, and child care institutions, but not everyone is affected.
The law will exempt agricultural lands and gardens, golf courses, sod farms. No pesticides have been.
Those in the lawn business say the province has gone too far.
The products we're using are already completely safe, completely approved by Health Canada, time and time again for decades. So this is purely a political move.
Tim Hughes is also part of Landscape Manitoba, who brought wheelbarrows full of postcards signed by people opposed to the ban.
Our customers are not going to be thrilled to be paying more money for less effective results.
Hughes says there's one way you can avoid the pesticide controversy altogether. Organic lawns like this one use nothing but fertilizer. Results take a little longer, but it's roughly the same cost as a pesticide program. Megan Fidler, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Fight the resistance.
I don't see like dandelions.
Yeah?
Like just
They just
cut
look
it
up.
on and move the dandelions on.
Just cut it. Yeah.
Or you can just go and get a weed picker and just pick the weed out yourself.
Yeah, I've done that too.
My name's Ian Heath. I'm the director of the International Survey of Herbicide-Resistant Weeds. What we do is monitor the occurrence of herbicide-resistant weeds around the world. There are 393 different types of herbicide-resistant weeds that go around the world. There's more than 600,000 farmers that have the problem. Countries that have been using herbicides for the longest are those that have the biggest herbicide-resistant problems. And the United States leads the way with 141 different types of herbicide-resistant weeds. Australia is next with 61, and Canada is not too far behind with 58 different types of herbicide-resistant weeds.
Herbicides have been used commercially since the early 20th century. The total number of all herbicide-resistant weeds nearly increased in the 1970s. It has increased rapidly since then and is anticipated to continue increasing.
The reason why we have herbicide-resistant weeds is the repeated use of the same herbicide or a herbicide of the same mode of action year after year. It's very important for growers to be aware of herbicide resistance on their farms. Herbicide-resistant weeds cost growers a lot of money every year around the world. And it's particularly important now because we're starting to run out of new herbicide modes of action.
Herbicide resistance develops because in any population of a weed species, there are very rare resistant individuals. These are rare mutations that can occur regardless of any herbicide application. After spraying, typically with a single mode of action herbicide, the majority of susceptible weeds are controlled. However, a resistant individual weed can survive and produce seeds, all of which have the dominant resistant trait. The resistant weed of that species spreads and is selected for by subsequent applications of the herbicide with the same mode of action. Eventually, the resistant weeds take over the field, and that herbicide is no longer effective for control.
One of the most important things farmers can do to try and reduce the occurrence of herbicide resistance is to rotate between different herbicide modes of action. They can do that through rotations, through crop rotations, but they can also do that through tank mixing herbicides or using different herbicide modes of action in sequence.
There you go. I got a little bit more tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to play a game. Bioaccumulation game.
Can we take shots of is a good grade.
Yeah, so we're all gonna take a shot of DET and see what happens.
Yep.
I'll take it.
Good.
What happens?
Chloe, we're still good for tomorrow?